Hi, and thanks for tuning in. This week I'm going to be looking at lifting cannas, getting them through the winter so you can then plant them out in the spring. Now the main reason we grow cannas is for the foliage. It's all about these beautiful, large, strapping great leaves. The flowers are great, they're very beautiful, but they're quite, in the broad terms of the canna, fairly insignificant. Now in terms of the variety that's out there, there's a fairly good range. The colours of the leaves are from bright greens through to dark reds and everything in between. This is a really good one. This is Canna indica purpurea. It grows like the clappers once it gets going, good strong plants, and it bulks up very, very quickly. Now I'm lifting these cannas, but if you live in milder areas where the winters aren't too harsh and you don't actually get the rainfall as much as we do here, then you can leave them in the ground. But what you need to do is mulch them generously in the winter time, because that mulch almost acts like a blanket protecting the rhizomes, which are the big fleshy roots under the soil. In this instance, I'm lifting them, and this particular variety of canna is one called Mystique, and it came from my absolute favourite garden down in Sussex called Great Dixter. The moment I saw it, I fell in love with it. Now in terms of when you actually do this, there's two signals if you like. Obviously time of year is one of them. We're in October now and things are starting to shut down. With cannas the leaves start to look a bit manky, that's really the point at which you can jump in there and lift them. Failing that, if Jack Frost comes along, they'll look absolutely horrible, and that will definitely be your signal that you need to get in there fairly sharpish and get them out. And when it comes to lifting the canna up, just make sure you get as much of the rhizome up as possible. They're really easy to do, but you don't want to leave any left in the ground, because this is all material that you can use in the spring to grow yet more cannas from. So having lifted our canna, this is what we've got, a decent sized root ball around the base of the plant. You've got this year's stems rising above it here, and right at the base you've got these beautiful lush pointy shoots, and it's these which are going to be next year's stems. It's not the end of the world if you break them off, but try not to, because the more that you keep and protect, the better the growth will be in the spring. So using a decent pair of secateurs, you just cut the main stems back to a couple of centimetres. It all looks quite brutal, but trust me, it works. So now we need to pot the canna up into some fresh compost, and it's important to use fresh compost because it won't have any bugs or material in it that's going to affect the winter storage, if you like, of the canna, but also if it's new it will be relatively dry, and that's key to this whole process, is potting up into dry compost, because from my experience it's keeping it as dry as possible, which actually gets it through the winter really successfully. So in terms of the depth of the cannas when they go in the pot, they don't want to be too buried. In fact, those lovely sharp shoots for next year want to be just proud of the soil surface, and that way they'll be perfectly happy during the winter time. And the other really important thing you need to do is to label what is in this pot, because trust me from experience, if you don't do that, you'll be stood there in the spring looking at this thing thinking, what are you? Because when they all start shooting, if there's more than one variety in your repertoire, you won't have a clue what they are until they're fully growing. So this one's called Mystique. And I also quite like to put a date on the back, which tells you when you did it, so that it's just a reference for next season. In the side of the pot, bury it well, and then it doesn't flick out during the winter time. So this is where the canna comes to. It's a covered space within the greenhouse here we have on the nursery. It's a very simple structure. It's a bubble wrap tent, if you like, within the greenhouse itself, because when you're trying to heat a space during the winter time, don't try and heat the whole structure, even if it's a small greenhouse, because it's amazing what heat is lost through the glass. If you're trying to heat a much smaller space, it's a much more efficient way of heating that air, if you like. So this is a wooden frame within the greenhouse which is covered in bubble wrap, and I only heat it using 2 heated bars, and they use very little electricity, no more than a light bulb would, and that provides the minimal amount of heat that you need to keep the air within the space frost-free. The other really important thing to bear in mind is the moisture in the pots. Don't be tempted to water the compost, contrary actually to what a lot of the books say. I tend to stop watering once the plants are in here. November time, nothing at all, and don't introduce any water until the spring, very early spring. You need to follow what the plants are doing. When you see signs of growth, that's when you very, very cautiously start introducing a bit of water. But this is where I keep the cannas. It's also where I bring in the hardy banana plants and other tender plants that just need to be kept out of the rain as much as anything. But during the coldest months, it's a cosy little space for them to get through the winter in. So there we go. That's how we get a canna through the winter. But what's just important is what you do with the canna in the spring. And to make sure you don't miss out on any future tips, hit the subscribe button below.